I have a very special guest coming up today. Today, Michael is joining me to show, it's not only us software developers, people building websites, people building backend applications that can use coding assistants. With coding assistants such as Amazon Q Developer CLI and a correct MCP server, we can all benefit. So Michael is going to show me today how you, who wish to build games, can use the proper MCP servers to work with Unity, to work with Blender, to work with something called Perforce. I'll figure out what that is. So join me and Michael right now as we look at the wonderful world of some MCP servers he wrote. Before I start, Michael, introduce yourself. Tell me who are you, what do you do, where do you join us from, and Unity or Godot?
Well, first of all, my name is Michael Williams, Senior Specialist SA on the Amazon Q team. And today I'm going to show you just some day-to-day tasks that you would do as a game developer. Could be working with Blender, working with Unity, and then also uploading changes to Perforce.
Okay. And you're going to do this all with like a coding assistant type of deal, right?
Yep, so I'm going to do it all using Amazon Q and MCP servers.
Okay. So like a lot of times we get to see a lot of new MCP servers, so I'm excited to see that. So, excellent. Godot or Unity?
Unity.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair.
Yeah.
I use Bevy. That's my game engine of choice.
Okay.
Shout out to the Rust people out there. Although the best game engine so far, at least the most impressive one, is have you heard about Love 2D?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's for Lua.
Mm-hmm.
Like the game of the year, Balatro, was made purely in Lua and Love 2D. That's it. Amazing.
Wow.
So show me what is this thing that the game developers have to struggle with, and what is this thing solving for us?
Sure. So I think most of the struggle will be with the last MCP server with Perforce, especially if you're having to maintain multiple streams. If you don't know what a depot is with Perforce, it's very similar to a GitHub repo.
Yeah.
You have streams instead of branches, but the reason why game developers use Perforce is purely because of the large assets. So some of these projects can be like terabytes of size.
Yeah.
And I think where the friction lies is having to use a lot of these different CLI commands if you're working with P4V in the terminal.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use Amazon Q as like a natural language front end.
Okay.
So I can talk directly to Perforce.
Amazing. Perforce, for folks out there who don't know, it's kind of like, I thought of it like a Git thing, but it's sort of like it. It does source code management, but it also does asset management. So it's a big thing in the gaming industry, right?
It is, yeah, very much so. I think where Git struggles is around these huge files.
Yeah.
And so, especially if you're an artist,
Okay.
and you'll be working with like gigabytes worth of files here. So yeah, it's helpful.
So tell me, what is this problem that a game developer faces, or well, not a problem, but what is this heavy lifting that we can kind of square away with some coding assistants?
Yeah, good. So I think if I was working on code or building my models, I don't want to have to think about, okay, now I have to jump back into Perforce, run commands against a CLI. Sometimes you might forget to submit changes or create a change list before submitting files. And having the assistant on the front of that can completely change the way you interact with the tool. So I can just say, can you upload this new file to Perforce?
Okay.
And it will handle all those commands in the back end and upload that directly without me having to worry about some of the friction points. I think for me as a learning Perforce user, I would always forget to create change lists, create client workspaces when I'm making file changes, and Q can handle that all for you.
Yeah.
I can just worry about writing the code, building the models, and doing the fun stuff.
Okay.
All the maintenance stuff, we'll do that for you.
Well, that's kind of the point, right? Like one of the things I found using myself when I work with coding assistants is that it's not just a thing that generates code for me. It actually does a lot of those kind of like things that I don't really want to care about. Can you show me how this works without Amazon Q? Like how would this process work? Is it a command line tool? Is it like a web interface type of deal? Is there like, what's the process? Just so I can understand how my life is better with this.
Sure. So are you talking about like setting the tools up?
Well, no, so like how do I use Perforce without Amazon Q? Like what's the...
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Like so, I want to see what I'm missing. So.
No, totally. So this is P4V.
Okay.
And what I would normally do is, say if I'm going to create a new depot, for example, I would go through P4V.
Sure.
Or if I was to go inside the terminal, I'm doing commands like creating depots, but specific commands.
Okay.
And where Q removes that abstraction away, so I'm just saying in English.
Right. Okay. Okay. So
Create
natural language, right?
Exactly right. So it just allows me to take a little more of that thinking away.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes it just faster. Even if it's only paper cutting 5 to 10 seconds of time, you add that into multiple times a day. It really does save you a lot of time.
So an example workflow here would be to create a depot, create a change log or like a change set. What is it?
Change list.
A change list, and then like actually push those changes to.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's like, and then sometimes even if I jump to a new machine and I might want to pull down, say, changes someone submitted, I might forget to like do these things at time, like create that client workspace before making changes. And you'll see Q will actually identify that if you're missing those points.
Right.
So you don't get, I don't know, stuck with that friction for 1 or 2 minutes, like I said.
Yeah.
It'll handle that for you.
Okay.
So it takes that mental capacity to think of interacting with Perforce, and I can just get to like writing code.
Nice. Okay. Well, so Q by itself doesn't do that, right? Q is an LLM. It can do a lot of cool things. It has some built-in tools. However, we need to grasp the power of MCPs, Model Context Protocol, specifically an MCP server here for Perforce. Can you show me what that is? And maybe we can look at it and
sure. So
how is it set up?
First of all, what I can do is,
can you make that full screen?
Yes.
So we can see it better. There you go. And zoom in like command plus. There you go. Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, now we can see.
Yeah.
Okay, so inside this folder here, I'll spin up VS Code so you can see it's an mcp.json file. And this is what it looks like here.
Okay, nice.
And outside of obviously Q, you have to do these additional things for configuring that interaction with the third-party tool.
Understood.
So you set up your MCP server here.
Okay.
I'm specifying command UV that's going to ultimately run a Python file, which also runs this fast MCP dependency, and that handles setting up that connection between Q and Perforce or any other third-party tool.
Okay, that's pretty good. And do you have to like download this? Like you have to download this MCP server specifically, right? It's this from Cocoon AI. Is that the one that you're using specifically? Or?
This is actually a custom one I've built.
You built yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Can you show us? I would love to see some code of that MCP if that's the thing. Because I myself have been building some MCPs in the past, and I find it fascinating how, I mean, it just wraps up so many things for you. In essence, you could do stuff. You could do stuff before. You could do stuff like this before without an MCP, but there was no standardized way to interact with it. You had to like do all kinds of tool calling and weirdness. This kind of makes it super easy.
Yeah, like in a nutshell, basically, that MCP server allows you to create that nice standard interaction with any third-party tool.
Okay.
So then with Q, I can spin up any MCP server and speak to even multiple tools, which we're going to see today.
Exactly. Okay.
So
awesome.
This is what my MCP server code looks like. I've got actually on this machine 4 MCP servers loaded, one for Blender, one for Perforce, Unity, and Unreal.
Okay.
And I've actually used Q to build this for me.
Okay. No.
So I'm sure we're all aware now of like the term vibe coding.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
And I've basically built these completely from vibe coding. So
amazing.
And
I would love to see the tools actually it's calling, for example.
Yeah, sure. So this is a quick look at the code. I set up fast MCP like so.
Yep.
And then
these are the tools.
The tools, exactly. And so I can define these functions by name.
Okay.
And so when I actually run these requests via a prompt to these tools, Q will recognize these are the tools I can actually run. Exactly. And if I want to see those tools, I'll jump in Amazon Q.
Okay.
And I can go to tools like this, and it will load all the tools I can use when interacting with my MCP servers. Nice. So as you can see here, these are
files one. Okay.
Exactly.
Nice.
And this is only a handful of things that I've built with Perforce.
Right.
The sky's the limit.
Exactly. Yeah. I myself personally, I built a tool that like. You shouldn't do this, but like a tool that controls my Home Assistant, so I can turn on a light with my Q.
Hey, that's helpful.
burn down a tree, turn on a light. Don't do that. There's better ways to automate that. But like I love the fact that you can kind of build these tools. And if you go back to the code, this specific tool that's called a list object. Oh, here's a fun trick how you can do this. Let me teach you a Mac trick.
Okay, sure.
Here's for you, chat, as well. When the window is in full screen, you want to go back, 3-finger swipe. Whoa, bam, huh?
Okay.
Look at that. Okay.
You just saved me some time.
So look at the code here. There's a little kind of a comment about what this specific function is, and then a bunch of try and accepts. Okay.
Yep, and you can see as well that when you specify at least some information about what these functions are doing, it allows Q to digest and get a little more context around what it's trying to do. And the more specific you can be, obviously, the better it's going to work. Yeah. So, and then like scrolling down here, I can see things which, as you can see what the code is doing, it's actually speaking to P4 via the CLI tool, but just creating that nice general natural language prompt on the front of it. So it's very simple to interact with the tool.
Lovely. And in this case, like the comment itself, that's being also presented to the LLM so it understands what specifically this tool does, right?
Correct. Yes.
Cool. Nice. That's really cool. Okay. And here it's just running a P4 print -q command with a bunch of other potential parameters, right?
Correct.
In the current working directory.
But again, I didn't write this code. Q wrote this.
Q wrote this code. Beautiful. Excellent. Okay. So shall we see it in action?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I know we talked a lot about Perforce, but I'm going to start off the workflow in Blender.
Okay.
And so I have an MCP server with Blender. And I also have built an add-on for generating humans and generating trees.
Okay.
And in this case, with this MCP server with Blender, I actually had to create a socket server. So Q's speaking and sending Python code over this socket server to the tool.
Okay.
And so what I can do is inside Q, I can say, can you connect to Blender?
Okay, so this tool is kind of listening at that socket locally.
Correct.
And okay, nice. That's pretty cool.
And you'll see here too, when you configure MCP servers, it will come up with explicit permissions of asking you to run these actions. I can choose to trust all, so it will never ask again, or I can just say yes at any one time. For this demo, I might actually say trust all.
Trust all, yeah.
Yeah. So I've made that connection to Blender, and then I'll say, can you generate a tree in my Blender scene?
Nice. So I mean, Q is not literally generating it. It's not doing the polygon type of deal. It's using this tool that you've written, this plugin extension in Blender, and it's just talking to it and instructing it to draw a tree, right?
Correct. Yeah. But you can actually even use Q to build polygon style objects. Okay. It is, I will say, it is very limited, but I've only just started to tap into that and play around with it. I mean, if you look at some of the things people are doing online, they are using Q and say an LLM to completely build models from scratch. But I think in the case of this demo, something a little more reliable.
Of course, yeah. Demoing LLMs is great. So we see the name tree location 000, and there's 3 branch levels enabled. Oh, look at that. There's a tree.
There's the tree.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pretty cool.
Okay, and you could technically tell it a little bit more details, like depending on how you built your tool, right? Like you could tell it where exactly to draw it, or like
exactly.
Nice.
And I have other things inside this tree generator. Yeah. This is some other options for generating types of trees. Yeah. Black oak and all these different types of trees, and I can specify those into prompts. Okay. And another thing too, I also have a human generator. Okay. So I can say, can you generate a human next to the tree? Nice. Now it has an awareness of where the location is. Yep. And you'll see too, as I start to talk more to Q, it starts to build context and understanding, of course. And it gets smarter and smarter. And then if I, gosh, I love that 3 fingers. Yeah, there you go, you're welcome. And there you go. So yeah, 2 little models created, but just some simple interaction with Blender. But I think now taking this more into where I can save some time. Yeah. So I don't want that human in there. I just want that tree model. Okay. And I'm going to say, can you export? Sometimes I misspell the prompts, but
The beautiful thing about LLMs, they don't care about your misspellings.
It's probably making me dumber, but
just bang on the keyboard to get it.
Yeah.
Understand what I'm saying. Okay, can you?
So can you connect to Unity? And we'll start that connection to Unity.
Okay, so there's a tool that connects it. Like, is there's also like a socket on that one as well?
So in this case, there is a socket on Unity and a plugin loaded into Unity. So there is some additional hurdles to do this, but with these type of tools, it required a little more than, say, if I was building an MCP integration to Jira or other tools.
Yeah. Okay.
It's much simpler. But so I've created that connection to Unity now, and what I'll say is, can you export the tree model from Blender? And now I'm going to demonstrate MCP to MCP interaction, where Q is facilitating that interaction. So I'll say, can you export the tree model from Blender to my Unity scene?
That's really cool. Nice. I love
And
it.
so now we're demonstrating Q as that facilitator, and you'll see multiple commands happening between different tools. So we'll start with exporting an FBX file, which is very common as a gaming asset, and then import into my Unity scene.
That is really
And
cool. I
as
see
you can
Unity
see,
bouncing.
the little bounce there,
Yeah, look at that.
and there it is.
Okay, there you
Well,
go.
put it upside down, but it's a start.
Sideways for you, that's fine.
Yeah, so there we go.
Okay.
And so I think like just that there for me is something that when I used to build a lot of Unity games, just a simple task there of, hey, I just created a model, export, put it in my Unity scene, and let me start playing around with it.
If you had multiple models in the Blender scene, would it export them all?
It would, unless you specify.
Okay.
I would actually probably have to write a custom function to take in a name.
A name, okay, so.
That would take in that name of the model and then export just that object.
Okay.
But you can even do things like take the camera position and move that around in your scene as well. So it's quite cool.
Pretty good. And again, probably MCPs exist out there that do this, but you built one yourself, so I get great exercise. Also understand how this all works. Perfect. Okay, so we have a Unity scene now. What happens next?
Okay, now we'll get to our third MCP server.
Okay, look at that. MCP server number 3.
P4V.
P4V.
And this is, I'm sure, very common to many gaming developers that are using Perforce inside the P4V client, or advanced Perforce users will be using the CLI. And I'm going to show you as like that advanced user speaking natural language to Q directly to Perforce.
Okay, nice.
So what I'll say is, can you connect? Now, in this case, I've actually got a AWS secret stored in my AWS account. Okay. So I don't have to paste those username and passwords into the prompt. Okay. I'm taking that secret, and then Q under the hood through my MCP server is taking that secret, reading it, and then passing that to as an SSL connection to Perforce. So how does Q read your secret? Well, it has access to your account by default. Okay, so this is a default feature of Q, right? It's able to run specific AWS commands, right? Correct. Well, you have to set up and configure your AWS CLI, right? And then once that's configured, you can do whatever you want when interacting with AWS. Yeah. That's how I used to get my billing information. So great. Okay, nice. Okay. So I'm going to say, can you connect to Perforce using my AWS secret? You probably don't even have to specify the name, but it should be able to find it, right? I mean, while it's doing that, I think a better approach to this would be potentially if you have a project here specifically that deals with a specific key, specific Perforce key, you could store the instructions in a context file inside of the working directory or like a global context. That anytime you ask it to connect to Perforce, you will instruct an LLM that this is the name of this secret key, so you don't have to even define that into a thing. Exactly right. So yeah. So as you can see there, I've connected to a Perforce server, which I have running on AWS. And what I'll do now is I'm going to say, can you create a new depot called, let's say a new local depot. I'll explain that in a moment. Yeah. Can you create a new local depot for Unity demo? I will say called Unity demo. Okay, nice. Okay. Well, so you're now thinking it step by step. In essence, would there be a way for you to say like, hey, I finished my Unity scene, push it, right? Would that be a way? Would it know how to do it, or would you have to give it a little bit more instruction? If I've already got I'm showing you from scratch.
Okay, yes.
Like in GitHub, creating a new repository.
Okay.
But most of the time you will have already created this depot and connecting to it. So I can say now, I'll just show you that it's reflected in P4V.
Okay.
And there's my...
See, okay.
So already there you've seen 3 separate tools that Q is talking to, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and now what I can do is I can say, can you list my depots? So I think this is normally where I would start.
Yes.
If I was jumping into like a repo.
Yeah.
Sorry, a new project, yes. And listing the depots there.
Nice, okay.
And then from here, I made a mistake. I'm going to say, can you delete I created a local depot. I want to create a stream depot.
Stream depot, okay.
I deliberately did that just for the demo.
Oh, look at you, sneaky. Okay. Okay.
So can you delete Unity demo?
Okay.
From Perforce. Just a demo that I can create and delete.
Yeah.
And then I'll go ahead and I'll create a stream depot.
I mean, with the chaining of tools here, you could technically say, could you delete this Unity demo and create the exact same one but a remote streaming depot, right? Yep. You could technically do it.
I could do that. I could even, like from the very start of this, if I already had this depot created, I could say, export this model, push it straight up to Perforce. So to show that it's reflected there.
It's gone.
It should be gone. Sometimes it takes a little time to reflect.
The eventual consistency.
Yeah. Give it some time.
Give it some time.
I'll list it and it should be gone. Sometimes P4V is a little delayed.
Sure.
And we should see 3 depots. Yep. So
okay.
it's
here. Okay, so the UI, that looks like a Java UI.
There we go.
Okay, good.
So,
okay, yeah. That looks like one of those Java applets. I'm not
sure. Perforce has been around for quite some time.
Okay, yeah. Shout out to Perforce. Okay, cool. So we have this. Create a streaming depot.
Okay, so we'll go say, can you create a stream depot?
I love how we always ask the LLM, can you, could you, would you?
No, we're very polite.
Very polite. You could just tell it, create streaming depot.
You'll actually notice, I think, as these LLMs are evolving, they're starting to use more slang and be more generic.
Yeah.
But still, we'll be formal. And so now I've created a stream depot. And one thing I want to point out is Q's now starting to prompt about things that I haven't done yet, which is, because this is a new stream depot, I haven't created a main stream on there. So I'll say, yes, can you, first of all, let's have a look and see it.
Okay, Unity demo.
There's my stream depot. And I'll say, yes, can you create a stream main on Unity demo? And you're already seeing now some of those friction points that it's sort of being predictive about what I'm trying to do here.
Understood. Yeah.
And now I've created my stream. And if I refresh, and there's my stream.
Okay.
Okay, and then now it's saying, again, another friction point. Well, like I mentioned to you earlier, I haven't created that client space, a client workspace yet to start pushing files to that stream. But I also want to create, can you create another stream called dev on Unity demo? And what you'll see, which is kind of cool, is it understands that dev has to be branched off main.
Yeah.
So you'll have like, I shouldn't be using branches because this is Perforce.
It's not Git, right?
Yeah.
Something like a branch.
Something like a branch. But now what you'll see here, refresh, and now you can see my dev stream is underneath my main, which is really cool. And now let's just, for the sake of wrapping this all up, I want to say, can you now push, can you push the tree model?
So while he's typing out that thing,
DevStream.
One of the key things about this that I really do enjoy is that because even as like a novice junior developer who's starting to work with something like P4X, P4V, what? P4X. Is P4X something else? Is that an exercise program? No, I don't know. P90X, yes. So you actually, even if you don't know what you do, it actually takes you through the whole thing. It's actually able to kind of like prompt you of things you need to do to be able to push code. So for folks learning this stuff, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, so there it just created my client workspace.
Okay.
And it also then called add single file, which is another function. And then that will wrap up what we
Amazing.
today.
So are we able to see that thing? I guess I don't know how. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's
there
something.
it is. There's my tree model. But actually, one more thing I want to show is where Q can help speed this up even more. So I'm going to say, can you create a new P4ignore file?
Okay.
And
kind of like git ignore. I don't
exactly. Know. It's exactly the same thing. Can you go to P4ignore file for my Unity project and push to devstream? And this is a little introduction to some document generation that I think is very, very useful in any project. You can do readmes, getting started guides, and as you can see there, it generates all the files to ignore in the case of a Unity project. And
it's aware that you're using a Unity project here because
does
it actually know that you're using a Unity project? Is it able to determine?
Well, so my code base here. This is the project I'm working with.
Yeah, okay, so
that's all my...
But also inside of the context, you were doing some Unity stuff, so it's kind of able to also determine based on the context that we're talking about Unity.
Because I'm actually, so QCLI is actually running from the terminal, but I have the path of my terminal in that Unity project.
Yeah, exactly.
So I actually didn't even specify it's a Unity project. I could just say in this project, and it should recognize it's a Unity project. And then now I can choose to list from here if I want to, but just to show it reflecting in P4V, you should see that ignore file there.
I love it. There you go.
And there we go. And all the change lists that have to happen in between, if I was working across, say, an agile team with multiple streams, you'll have the ability to control the change lists, create pending changes, submit pending changes. That is where I think a lot of the friction points with Perforce lie.
I love it. Amazing. So in essence, multiple MCP servers helping you achieve your job no matter what you're doing, even in the world of game development. I do like that. Now, you've built these MCP servers yourself. I'm sure they exist somewhere out there. So if you don't feel confident building them yourself, you can check them out. Or maybe we can see and leave some of this code down in the description. Amazing. Michael, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks so much.
It's been great. I've been introduced to P4V today and all these kinds of things that I've never kind of had to work with. Never built games myself. So
I've made it easier for you, as you made it easier for me.
There you go. You're welcome. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. Just come back in a future video where we'll look at more MCP servers out there that are going to be super useful for you, especially if you're using Amazon Q CLI, Amazon Q Developer CLI. See you in the next one. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
That was fun, right? Love me all of those MCP servers. If you enjoyed the content, there's a little like button down below. If you want to see more stuff like this, there's the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching this video. See you in the next one.